Imagine someone who reads the ending of a book first. Not because they're impatient, but because the uncertainty of not knowing genuinely disrupts their ability to enjoy the story. Or picture someone who can map out a business strategy over breakfast, hold the entire thing in their head with perfect clarity, and still, somehow, forget to eat that breakfast. You'd think a mind like that would come with ease, a quiet confidence that everything will simply work itself out. But spend real time around people with extremely high intelligence, and you start noticing a different pattern entirely. One that's more contradictory, more lonely, and in some ways more fragile than the myth ever prepared you for. And the fifth profile, the one almost nobody talks about, is probably the one that'll stick with you the longest. The overthinker who can't stop the engine. Picture someone lying awake at 2 a.m. Not because anything is wrong exactly, no crisis, no looming deadline. They're just running, replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, mapping 17 versions of a decision that hasn't even been made yet, noticing a flaw in something they said in 2019. People with extremely high IQ often have what psychologists describe as a hyperactive default mode network, the region of the brain that stays active when you're not doing anything specific. For most people, it hums quietly in the background. For high IQ individuals, it doesn't really have a background. It's always foreground. Connections between unrelated ideas, patterns, and noise, hypotheticals that most people would never bother constructing. The engine doesn't power down between tasks, because to a mind like this, there are no spaces between tasks. Everything is a task. What looks like distraction is actually saturation. What looks like restlessness is a system running at a speed the world around it wasn't built to match. And nobody teaches you how to live in a body when your mind is 3 conversations ahead. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've been told you overthink, and you always quietly wondered whether the problem was your thinking or just the world's low tolerance for it. The social misfit who isn't actually antisocial. Then there's the person at the party who seems engaged, even warm, and then quietly disappears after 40 minutes. Not because they dislike people, because most conversations leave them feeling subtly, inexplicably hollow, and they've spent years not knowing how to say that without sounding like they think they're better than everyone else. They don't. They're just hungry for something that almost never shows up in group settings. Researchers call this intellectual loneliness, and it's one of the most underreported experiences in high IQ psychology. It's not loneliness in the way most people understand it. They may have a full life, real relationships, people who love them. It's a loneliness of depth, a chronic awareness that most conversations circle the surface without ever going under. So they become selective in ways that read as cold, quiet in groups, surprisingly open one-on-one. They'd cancel a dinner party for a single 3-hour conversation that actually goes somewhere. And the people who know them best often say the same thing. You would never know how much was going on inside until suddenly you did. But the next one, this one most people wouldn't see coming, goes somewhere even more unexpected than loneliness. The high achiever who can't pick a direction. Now here's one that looks from the outside like inconsistency, and feels from the inside like standing at a crossroads with too many good roads and no way to know which one you'll regret. The real issue for many high IQ individuals isn't motivation. It's a specific kind of paralysis that comes from seeing the full architecture of a problem before you've taken a single step toward it. It's like being handed the blueprints to a building and spotting every crack in the foundation before you've laid a single brick. Where someone else might start a project with optimistic energy and figure it out along the way, a high IQ person sees every structural flaw from the beginning, including every way it could fail. Starting requires accepting all of that up front without the protective buffer of not yet knowing. This is why some of the sharpest minds you'll encounter have the longest list of things they almost did. It's not laziness. It's the specific weight of knowing too much about the distance between here and done. 2 more, and the last one is the one I warned you about. The empath with a mind like a laboratory. High IQ and deep deep emotional sensitivity are not opposites. In fact, they appear together far more often than the cold logic stereotype suggests. There's a concept developed by Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski called psychic overexcitability. The idea that gifted individuals have a nervous system that is simply more reactive across the board, more sensitive to beauty, more disturbed by injustice, more affected by other people's pain, by music, by an unkind sentence said offhand 3 weeks ago that everyone else has already forgotten. What makes this combination genuinely strange is the internal experience of it. These individuals don't just feel things, they observe themselves feeling things, often simultaneously. They can be genuinely grieving while forming a theory about why they're grieving, in love, and also slightly outside the experience, watching it with quiet analytical curiosity. It makes them extraordinarily perceptive about other people. It makes intimacy feel layered in ways that are hard to explain. And the exhaustion of it doesn't look like burnout. It looks like someone who seems completely fine at dinner, goes home, and needs 3 days alone, not because the evening was bad, but because they absorbed every undercurrent in the room and now need to put it all down somewhere. The one who never believed it applied to them. And finally, the one nobody talks about, not because it's rare, but because it's the hardest one to say out loud. The person with a genuinely exceptional mind who has spent most of their life quietly convinced they're the exception to their own intelligence, that the results don't quite capture what they actually are, that the people around them, the ones who seem more certain, more decisive, more naturally at ease, are the real thing, and they are somehow performing a version of it. Impostor syndrome appears across many groups, but in high IQ individuals, it takes on a particular texture. The more intelligent you are, the more precisely you understand what you don't know. The wider your reading, the more vivid the gaps in your own knowledge become. Intelligence, at its upper ranges, illuminates your own edges with ruthless clarity. And that clarity can feel, from the inside, indistinguishable from inadequacy. They over-prepare. They attribute success to luck, to context, to the specific alignment of a good day. They look at their own work from a slight angle, never quite head-on. The mind that can see through most things somehow cannot see itself. That person who reads the last page first, they're still awake at 2 a.m. somewhere, running scenarios for a decision they haven't made yet, feeling slightly outside a life that is entirely their own. And they probably have no idea how many people are lying awake in exactly the same way. High IQ is not a personality type. It is not a guarantee of ease or direction or peace. It is a particular kind of complexity, one that shows up differently in everyone who carries it. The overthinker whose engine never powers down. The person who disappears from parties because the conversations never go deep enough. The capable one paralyzed at the start line by knowing too much. The empath who absorbs every room they walk into and spends days quietly recovering. And the one who has spent decades unsure whether any of this actually applies to them. Which one do you recognize? Not the one that sounds most flattering, the one that actually lands. Drop it in the comments. Those conversations tend to go somewhere worth reading.